in liberation spiritualities, something that's key in theology as I understand it today, which is that it needs to be contextual. Theology is to do with people where they are. So if your context is one of oppression, you can evolve and produce a liberation theology from that. If black theology is the theology that comes out of that context, out of the context of black suffering or out of black people's experience, then presumably there's been some sort of black theology, though it might not be consciously so, for as long as there have been black people reflecting on their experience, and Christian theology for as long as there's been black Christians. I suppose we think of it as a 20th century movement or phenomenon. There's another sense in which if black theology arises out of black experience of oppression or any other context needing liberation, then presumably it's tied up with slavery and the quest for emancipation. So for as long as there have been slaves, you might say there's been black theology. I would imagine some of the earliest examples that you might find in the West would be people who began to reflect at the time of movements for emancipation in the late 18th and the early 19th centuries. For example, people like Sam Sharp in Jamaica. So perhaps it's been around for 200 and 300 years. If you look at the experience of black people in different parts of the world where they have begun to reflect on their experience and their need for liberation, then there's black theology, at least in prototype. There was a general movement amongst the people in the States after the end of the Second World War, and the church played a growing role up, especially through Martin Luther King and the other members of that. And out of that, I guess, black theology grew.